Good evening, my friends. As the Biden administration continues to insult everyone about selling the lie that gas prices are historically high today because of Putin, the House interrogated energy execs to uncover the truth. Pro-life activists have found full-term aborted babies hiding inside biomedical waste that were to be used by the Curtis Bay Energy Company to provide electricity in the Baltimore area. There is an atrocity happening in the world that sends chills down my spine. This is not the first time I have discussed this, and it won't be the last time, not until this heinous crime against humanity is exposed and brought to an end. Okay, my friends, let's take a closer look together. In the Baltimore area, activists have found full-term aborted babies hiding inside biomedical waste that are to be used by the Curtis Bay Energy Company to provide electricity in the Baltimore area. The discovery have sparked outrage on social media when it was discovered in a Washington abortion clinic by the progressive anti-abortion uprising activists. According to the founder of the group, Teresa Bukovinik, on March 25th, I went to Washington Surgery Center to engage in anti-abortion advocacy. Upon arrival, we saw a truck labeled Curtis Bay Medical Waste Services parked outside. We approached the driver, who was about to load 2 large boxes with biohazard symbols onto his truck.
Lauren Handy and I went to Washington Surgery Center to engage in anti-abortion advocacy. Upon arrival, we saw a truck labeled Curtis Bay Medical Waste Services parked outside. We approached the driver, who was about to load 2 large boxes with biohazard symbols onto his truck. We asked him if he knew what was in the boxes, and after he said no, we told him, dead babies. The driver was visibly shaken.
When they convinced the driver to take one of the boxes, she was shocked to find 115 aborted fetuses inside the box, out of which 5 were clearly conducted illegally. After digging deeper into the box, Teresa found an intact and nearly full-term baby boy, which she named Christopher X. She said, finding that baby is the most devastating and the most soul-crushing experience of my life. She also found 4 other babies with severe injuries on their body that represents a complete violation of federal abortion law. For example, one baby girl had severe damage to her head, with deep lacerations on her neck, while another baby was found in its amniotic sac and could have been born alive. If we took a look at the 1973 Roe v. Wade case, the Supreme Court has given clear direction by stating that once the babies have reached a point where they can independently live outside the womb, restrictions on abortions were proper and aligned with the state's interest in protecting life. This horrific incident has now grabbed the attention of the 23 Republican members of Congress, who are unitedly demanding that Washington Mayor Muriel Bowser and the Metropolitan Police Department carry out sufficient investigation in this matter. By referring to Bowser and Metropolitan Police Chief Robert Conti, the 23 Republicans wrote, "As a member of the Congress, we have an obligation to conduct oversight over the District of Columbia to ensure D.C. upholds laws enacted by Congress, particularly those enacted to protect and uphold the sanctity of human life." The Republicans also referred to the Partial Birth Abortion Ban Act of 2003, which says partial birth abortions occur when a physician partially delivers a living baby to the purpose of performing an overact that intentionally takes the life of the child. Not to forget, the Supreme Court in the Gonzalez versus Carhart's case has approved a ban on partial birth abortions. According to a neonatal specialist, Dr. Robin Perucci, I can confidently say that these babies died at an age when they were viable, premature people. However, the leaders are astonished to find the lack of attention given by the D.C. Metropolitan Police on such matters, because last week, the same police recovered the remains of 5 preborn children from Dr. Cesar Santangelo's clinic in the city. Instead of initiating an independent investigation, the Metropolitan Police assumed they died as part of legal abortion. As the House interrogates energy execs over high prices, lawmakers point out previous hearings when production was discouraged. Senator James Lankford, Ted Cruz, and some others at a news conference on April 6 claimed the historically high gas prices are a consequence of Biden's administration's policies, not just Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Also, Senator John Kennedy said, the problem is that the oil is in Louisiana and Texas, and Oklahoma and Kansas, and North Dakota and Alaska, and in many other states, but the dipsticks are in Washington, D.C. Diana DeGette, chairman of the House Energy and Commerce Oversight and Investigation Subcommittee, commenced the discussion by questioning the executives from BP, Chevron, ExxonMobil, Devon Energy, and Shell and Pioneer Natural Resources about why they thought gas prices were high. She insisted that the executives give yes or no answers on whether the reason prices are high is because of low supply, and interrupted them when they insisted the answer is more complex. Madam Chair, fuel prices are impacted by many factors, Chevron Corp CEO Michael Wirth said. So you don't agree that crude oil prices are high because there's less supply? DeGette said, interrupting Wirth. In an answer, BP chairman and president David Lawler mentioned complicating concerns in the supply network, suggesting that every decrease in oil pricing may take a bit longer to be recognized in fuel prices. Democrats on the committee constantly reinforced the oil industry's massive revenues in 2021. Chairman of the Energy and Industry Committee, Frank Pallone Jr., asked each witness for their profits in the previous year, as well as whether they would commit to doing whatever it takes, including increasing production and reducing dividends and buybacks to help American consumers. While the witnesses generally committed to increasing production, they were non-committal or outright declined to say they would reduce buybacks. During the conference, Senator Daniel Sullivan displayed a photo of his gas gauge, which was reading $109.44 when he filled his tank from a quarter to full. Biden's "I did that" sticker was next to the indicator. Nobody's being fooled, he said. This is what literally was on the pump in my home state. Senator John Barrasso criticized the Biden administration for its latest actions decreasing the amount of oil in the United States Strategic Petroleum Reserve. Biden said on March 31st that the SPR would release 1 million barrels each day for 180 days. The initiative, which is something the administration characterized as countering Putin's price hike, marks the largest ever release from the SPR. It doesn't actually produce one more barrel of American oil, Barrasso said. Some people call this release a gimmick. I say it's much more dangerous than that. And the reason is that he's drawing the emergency supply down. We haven't been down that low since 1984. The patient was a young man. His body was still warm. The doctors had removed both kidneys from the man and then instructed me to extract his eyes. However, suddenly his eyes moved and he looked at me. There was a sheer terror in his eyes, and my mind immediately went blank and my whole body began to shake. These statements are made by George Zhang, a former Chinese medical intern who was forced to join an illegal team of ruthless doctors who were involved in making money by selling the organs of prison inmates. George lives in Toronto, and to this day, the memories of those eyes staring up at him haunt him to the core. According to a recent study published by the Australian National University, the researchers have found massive loopholes in the Chinese government's data regarding the reason for death given to prison inmates. The researchers studied the reports between 1980 to 2015 and were shocked to find that Chinese government surgeons are heavily involved in removing the vital organs of prison inmates despite being aware that they are entirely alive. And when it comes to the given reason for death, they mention brain death. Another study published by the American Journal of Transplantation revealed astonishing results when they studied 120,000 Chinese language publications on organ transplants and found 71 publications where the Chinese physicians had carved out hearts and lungs from people for transplant without first conducting a test to establish brain death, revealing that patients were killed for their organs. This might remind you of some of the horrific scenes from the movies like Squid Game or Saw. However, this is happening in real life. Selling these organs to wealthy buyers has now skyrocketed the domestic transplant industry of China on a massive level. China Organ Transplant Market report revealed that organ transplants in China jumped from 5,000 to 20,000 a year in 2018 and is on the road to becoming the country with the largest number of organ transplants in the world. Hospitals in the Chinese Zhengzhou region have now become the top 5 in the world regarding kidney transplantation. Okay, so let us talk about the prison inmates being targeted. You'll be surprised to know that most of them are human rights activists, journalists, members of religious groups, or spiritual members who have become victims of the CCP's evil totalitarian government. In 2007, the leader of the Chinese transplant sector openly wrote that 95% of all organ transplants are from prisoners. All of these facts are confirmed in the report published by the Australian National University. The experts were also astonished to find an increase in organ transplants when the Chinese government launched an anti-religious campaign to arrest and torture around 70 million to 100 million members of the Falun Gong spiritual group in the last 2 decades. In 2014, the World Organization to Investigate the Persecution of Falun Gong also highlighted shocking details from the Chinese medical papers on how the hospitals were smoothly conducting a large volume of organ transplants in one day. When the organization made undercover calls to the Chinese hospitals, the doctors were even promising organs in 1 week. Now the question is, how does these ruthless Chinese doctors and the Chinese Communist Party conduct such secret operations without letting the world know about it? Well, former public security officer Bob, a pseudonym, who was providing security at the places where death row prisoners were being executed, has now decided to come forth with his testimony. At the sound of gunshots, prisoners fell lifeless on the ground. Still warm bodies were carried to the nearby van where 2 white-clad doctors waited to remove their organs. 20 years ago, Bob witnessed this heart-stopping incident with his own eyes. He now lives in the United States and has refused to reveal his real name. According to Bob, the judicial system, police, prisoners, doctors, and the Chinese Communist Party officials are involved in this most evil atrocity. This is how Bob explains what he witnessed years ago. A prisoner is handcuffed and tied to his legs during the execution process to ensure he does not escape. A blood test is conducted to identify whether his organs are healthy enough to be extracted or not. Soon, the death row prisoners are taken in front of the High Court judge who approves the prisoner's execution. The prisoners are then marched out of the court towards 20 to 30 white vans whose windows were covered with red cloth and marked with a serial number. Prisoners are injected with drugs that are meant to relieve their pain. Then they are arranged in a line to be shot in the back of their head. After they are murdered, their heads are covered with a black plastic bag, and their bodies are quickly transferred to the white vans, where Bob managed to have a glimpse inside the van. He was shocked to notice 2 doctors rushing to remove the body's vital organs. In the end, the bodies are burned together so they can hide the fact that the organs had been harvested, and the prisoners' relatives are given no opportunity to see their loved ones. All they are given is a box with ashes from the burned body. According to Bob, this ruthless organ business in China has been going on for decades. However, despite quitting his job 3 years after joining, he believes the business will keep growing every day. He said, "No one is safe under the CCP's rule. What happens to someone else may happen to you tomorrow." And that's it for today, my friends. Don't forget to like and share, and most importantly, join our member site and support the mission to deliver truthful information. I'd rather depend on the generosity of you, people I can trust, than ever be dependent on YouTube again. I'd like to thank you all for spending time with me, and I'll see you next time.